Good morning, staff. Good morning, everyone that's here today. To start off, do we have any requests for bill introductions? Okay, if not, we got two bills to have hearings on today, and we will start out with SB 15. And we will have Eileen Ma, Assistant Reviser of Statutes, to give us a bill overview, if she would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee. Senate Bill 15 amends KSA 40-247 pertaining to penalties that an agent or broker would face for failing to pay premiums that are held in trust over to the insurers who make the insurance contracts for which the premiums were collected. So under current law, the failure of an agent or broker to pay premiums owed less their commissions or deductions to an insurer after written demand has been made is considered prima facie evidence that the agent or broker has used or applied the premium for a purpose other than paying such monies over to the company. Such failure would then subject the agent or broker to the penalties listed in subsection B. Senate Bill 15 would simply remove the requirement of the written demand in establishing prima facie evidence. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions.
Is there any questions or comments from the committee? Okay. Thank you, Eileen. Okay, proponents, we have Eric Turek, Director from Government and Public Affairs, Kansas Insurance Department. Eric, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric Turek here from the Kansas Insurance Department. Happy to be here in support of Senate Bill 15. As Eileen stated, this bill strictly deals with the statute that concerns agents who refuse to pay premium to their insurance company. As you can see in the bill, line 15, this strikes, the bill strikes after written demand made upon such agent or broker. Normally, agents act as an intermediary between the consumer and the insurer, and oftentimes they collect the premium and they pass that along to the company. And it is against the law to use that premium for any other purpose other than passing that along to the company. It's pretty obvious that money is not the agent's money, and so they shouldn't be using that for anything other than passing it along. If they do use it for anything else, it can range from a misdemeanor to a level 7 non-person felony, depending on the amount of premium that they have used for another purpose. So in this statute, it does outline specifically that a written demand is needed from a company to the agent demanding that the premium be relinquished. This requirement isn't always presented from the insurance company, this removing the specific written demand would help in the prosecution of cases where it's very clear that an agent has used premium for another purpose. The written demand does cause confusing and evidentiary issues. As I stated, removing that written demand requirement would aid in prosecution. And this only deals with, again, I want to be very clear, this only deals with agents who refuse to pay premiums. This doesn't have anything to do with, refusing to pay premiums and that they're using this for something else. This does not have to deal with an inadvertent error or anything like that. So I'm happy to, and I do also lastly want to state that while when an agent does refuse to pay premium for whatever purpose, or specifically using premium for another purpose, the department does still have the right to take administrative action against an agent. So the department can still revoke a license, but with this specific written demand requirement in there, it just sort of impedes the prosecution process. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Eric. First question I have is, how often does this issue come up? Is this something that we have more annually? Just kind of get an idea how often it comes up.
Sure. I will say that this comes from, this is an anti-fraud measure that comes from our department. We do work with the Attorney General's office, so I can't give you an exact frequency as to when this comes up, but I can tell you that there are cases that have difficulty moving forward because of this. I'll just restate that. I'll restate my comments. Having this in there does inhibit the prosecution of bad actors.
Okay. Committee, is there any other questions? Senator Olson?
Yeah, I guess I don't understand how it prohibits I mean, I think, with that written demand, you're finding out why they haven't given them funds up, and there could be a reason, I think, I would think it'd make it easier on the prosecution. Are you saying they normally don't reply, or?
So this written demand is only from the company and actually sending a written demand to the agent telling them you have to forfeit or give over the premium that you are holding. But there are many different forms of communication that can take place. I'll say that first. And in addition, there are contractual obligations and agreements between an agent and a company. Having this technical written demand requirement in there, I would say is not required for that expectation.
So are you saying they would do an email demand or another?
Whatever communication is outlined in their contract, I would say. This is the 21st century. I'll also say that there are many forms of communication, but for the statute to specifically say that this specific written demand has to be made, we see this as just a technical interference, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me kind of help in providing some additional information. With regard to written demand, it's an element of what the insurer has to do, and as I stated in the bill brief, it's part of establishing prima facie evidence. So basically, prima facie evidence is that if a condition exists, that's proof that the violation occurred. So by providing written demand to an insurer as an element of that, so you've got written demand to the agent and the agent not paying, you've got two pieces of what would be prima facie evidence of, diversion or misuse or whatever of those premium monies. By removing the written demand piece, basically an agent or broker's failure to pay then becomes proof that they have diverted or whatever, failed to pay and are subject to those violations. So it eliminates the insurer having to go through that extra step. And I hope that helps.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, Senator Gossage?
Forgive me, I was a minute or two late. Was there discussion about the type of agent that this would affect? Because it's very few, correct?
Sure. Yeah. This is, I can't give you the exact amount of times premium is used for another purpose. It is criminal, though, so I can't exactly give you that figure, but it is rare when these unfortunate incidences where a policyholder premium is used for another purpose. Mm-hmm.
So for like my industry and the health and life industry, you don't accept premium from anybody. So it goes directly to the insurance company, either an auto draft or they send the check directly there. So we never see any monies like that. So could you give us an idea of which, so I'm assuming property casualty, could you tell us when that would occur?
Whatever, for me personally, so I pay my insurance company personally or directly rather than through an agent, and that's just at least for my auto insurance. But wherever there is that agent intermediary there. So it kind of depends on the arrangements between the consumer and the insurer. Mm-hmm.
And then if I could, it's just so foreign to me. And I'm just like, wait, what? So if, the way I understand it, and maybe you or Eileen could address if that's okay, Mr. Chair, is that, so there is some situation in which an agent may have dollars that have not gone to the insurance company, and the insurance company or the Attorney General's office, whomever, cannot go after them if they're improperly using the funds unless the insurance company has this written document stating you need to give us that money. Is that what I'm hearing?
Couldn't have said it.
Is that why you're saying it's
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. You are correct. Without this written demand, I'll say that it would be difficult to prosecute a case
So
like this.
I would assume that because every agent has to sign a document, a contract with the insurance company, that there could be something already written in there saying, you know, if you have these funds, it can't be used for anything else. So is this written demand a separate document or a separate request from the original contract?
This written demand is only applicable to the statute. So, you know, whatever agreements and obligations that the agent has between them and the company, you know, it really should be self-explanatory that you must pay the premium to the company. But for this specific statute, it's for an agent to be found guilty on for the crime of using premium for another purpose, that the written demand does apply here. So removing this written demand this is just a completely, this is a technicality, if you will, and removing this would lessen the evidentiary necessity, or I guess maybe I just I worded that incorrectly, but this just does make it a lot easier for us to actually go after the criminals, not necessarily us, but the Attorney General's office.
Eileen, did you have anything to add to that? Oh, she's like, oops, I wasn't paying attention. That's okay. No,
I was paying attention.
Okay, good.
But there's nothing else that I have to add. It's just,
Okay.
it's an additional step that needs to occur.
So it is in addition to the contract, the original
would be-
contract that stipulates that.
It would be the same thing as you not paying your Visa and it being sent to a bill collector and them sending you a letter saying you owe this much, pay it now.
Okay, that makes it clear. Thank you.
Senator Olson?
Yeah, I think the difference though for the Visa versus what we're talking about, you're eliminating, the way I see this, they send a written demand, probably registered. You know, the person gets it, then they, you know, if there's any miscommunication, they have an opportunity to probably fix it. The way I see this, when you eliminate that, you've now basically saying this guy's a criminal, and if there's any mistakes, you've eliminated that process to dispute it. I could be wrong, but I mean, that's the way I'm seeing. I mean, because you're saying this could be criminal, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm totally off base, but that's the way I see it.
Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the difference between, you're not, okay, so in a situation, if this bill were to pass, the agent or broker's failure to pay those premiums owed would be prima facie evidence. It would go to trial, and heaven help me, I'm not a courtroom lawyer. I've never been a courtroom lawyer. I never wanted to be a courtroom lawyer, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I can't pretend to be one. But it would be part of a case, and the prosecutor would present this prima facie evidence. But prior to that would be, you know, I would assume the pretrial conferences and such where the agent could save him or herself, or the broker could save him or herself by remitting those monies due or not prior to it actually going to trial and having, you know, charges filed and being subject to those criminal penalties. It's not a, do not pass go, do not collect $200. It's not from A to B and you're a criminal and going to pay those, be subject to the violations. There's a trial or there's, charges filed in the meantime. That's why those violations are listed in statute.
Senator Olson.
Yeah, I mean, I get that part, but you've started the criminal approach much quicker without an explanation out. In my mind, I don't know, I like the old way where you send out the notice. And if they don't comply, you can still then go to court because it's registered, they didn't comply. You can move forward in that method, but at least that person has an opportunity, either say what happened, or maybe something's going on in the office. I don't know. I'm not an insurance agent, but I like that process.
Eric, would you like to add something?
Sure. What I'll say is, and you're totally right. I mean, so right now, nothing, cases can go to trial. The Attorney General's office can prosecute and litigate agents who have held premium and use it for another purpose, but only after that specific written demand has been made by the company. And the statute also doesn't define written demand also. And so we would hate to have bad actors hide behind that specific written demand on a technicality.
Well, if you send them a registered letter and it comes back, I mean, in my mind, you've done your trying to notify them. Maybe I'm wrong, but if they sign that, they get it, they then don't respond, I think it puts you in a much better position. But what if it's a minor dispute, but someone up here is having a bad day and there's an explanation for it. You've started criminal proceedings or you're on that path and, maybe, and I understand a court can fix it, but you can also fix it before the dispute gets too far down the road. So that's, hey, I don't know. I'm not an expertise on it, but I like the process. It's worked pretty good in the criminal system, the banking system. I understand things are going more modern, but I'm old school.
Senator Gossage.
Sorry not to belabor this. I'm trying to understand, how would a prosecutor, the Attorney General's office, or anyone else know if this agent had not forwarded these premium dollars to the insurance company if it's not reported by the insurance company? So I would think if they're reporting it, that, hey, this bad actor over here has not sent us the money and they want the money, would they not go ahead and just send the written demand? I'm still not quite certain why that would be an
Sure.
impediment.
So I do want to be clear that I don't speak for the Attorney General's office, but I will say when, so that's specifically, it might be a little difficult for me to opine there. I can get you more of that information, yeah.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation today about the bill. Two questions very related, if I may. How many times in a year is the department aware that written demands have been made upon an agent or broker? On average, how many times per year is a written demand made?
I can get you that information.
And then the second question is, what percentage, when that written demand is made, does it clear up the problem? That the premium is sent forward and the insured is made whole and the policy is in place and the problem is resolved very quickly rather than going through a criminal prosecution. So do you have that information?
I also don't have that information. I can get you that though, but I will maintain that this written demand is just strictly a technicality here. So we would hate to have bad actors hide behind the fact that an insurance company did not make this written demand. You and I both know that the need to pay or pass along the consumer's premium to the insurer, it's not the agent's money. So, but I can get you that information.
That's right, and that is a problem if agents or brokers are withholding money that's not theirs and not passing it along. And that brings up just a third question, if I may, Mr. Chair. How often do we hear, does the department hear that the written demands are claimed to be faulty somehow by the agent or broker who receives it?
That is another great question that I can get you the answer for. You know, I'll be completely candid. I don't believe that this happens too many times, but I do know that it does impede. Removing this phrase would aid the prosecution process.
Sure, and we want to, you know, it's a consumer protection issue and an anti-fraud issue, so appreciate the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you already answered this or mentioned it before, Eric, and I missed it, my apologies. Are there other, or what are the other processes in place then to collect those premiums prior to the letter being set currently? And would that change? Would those other processes still stay in place?
That's a good question. The other processes for collecting premiums, you know, a lot of that is outlined in the contract between the agent and then the company. Anything else in statute, I'd have to find that for you, but I'm not aware that this only pertains to just this case. So removing the written demand requirement.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Eric. Is there any other proponents? Is there any other opponents? Do we have any neutrals? Okay, we'll close this hearing. Vice Chair taking me to the weeds was interesting this morning. Thank you. So we are ready to have a hearing on SB 19. And for bill overview, Eileen, could you help us with that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 19 amends KSA 12-2624 pertaining to premium taxes paid by group-funded liability pools and KSA 44-588 pertaining to premium taxes paid by group-funded workers' compensation pools. Under current law, group-funded liability pools and group-funded worker compensation pools each pay a premium tax of 1% per annum based on the gross premiums collected during the previous fiscal year. And the premium tax is due no later than 90 days at the end of the fiscal year. Senate Bill 19 would change the basis upon which the premium taxes are calculated and collected. The bill replaces fiscal year simply with calendar year, and the result would be that the group-funded liability pools and group-funded workers' compensation pools would pay their premium tax of 1% per annum based on gross premiums collected during the previous calendar year, and the tax would be due no later than 90 days after the end of the calendar year. And with that, I apologize, the bill makes some technical changes, again, to conform to current drafting practices, and now I can stand for questions.
Do we have any questions, committee? Senator Gossage.
I was just curious why the change.
Mr. Chair.
Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What my position is to explain the legality of the bill. Policy behind the bill is something that the proponents can speak to.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, thank you, Eileen. So we have one proponent here, Eric Durick, from the Director of Government and Public Affairs, Kansas Insurance Department. Welcome back to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Eric Turek here from the Kansas Insurance Department. And Senator, I'll be sure to touch on that. Eileen did describe the bill pretty well. The department is in support of this bill. This is a part of our legislative agenda. There are 12 pools, group-funded pools in the state of Kansas. All pools do pay premium tax, and in statute, their premium tax deadline is 90 days after the fiscal year. This bill simply would change fiscal year to calendar year. I will say first, there is no definition as to exactly what fiscal year is. But secondly, 12 of the 17 pools, or 70% of the pools, their fiscal years already end on December 31 anyway. 90 days after that is effectively the calendar year. So this is a technical change primarily to streamline business practices here at the department. The vast majority of other entities already pay their premium tax within the first few months of the calendar year. In addition, if there's a new pool that comes along, we just don't want there to be any ambiguity there. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Eric. Do we have any questions from the committee? Okay, thank you. Do we have any other proponents on Senate Bill 19? Do we have any opponents? Do we have any neutral? Okay, if not, we will close the hearing. Got a couple reminders that I would like to give the committee and everyone in the audience. Monday, January 30th is the last day for individuals to request bill drafts from revisors. Monday, February 6th is the last day for non-exempt committees to request draft bills from revisors. Wednesday, February 8th is the last day for bill introduction by individuals, and Friday, February 10th is the last day for non-exempt committees' bill introduction. So is there any other announcements or information from the committee? Okay, our chairman will be back Tuesday, and that will be our next meeting, and the meeting is adjourned.